Hey guys, we're here with Devenee for episode 9 of the podcast by Devenee. Devenee, I hear we have a special guest today.
We do. We have Courtney Williamson with us today. She's based here out of Pittsburgh. She has a fantastic company that was created out of a personal need of hers, and it's ABOUTTIME.com. So welcome, Courtney.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
So Courtney, I hear you're an expert at getting grants.
I wouldn't say an expert, but I have gotten a few.
Okay.
And that's been super helpful for
I feel like
the
our audience
company.
has no idea what
Yeah.
a grant is, how to get one.
Okay.
Let's give everyone kind of like a breakdown of how this works.
So let me start with like what grants aren't
Okay.
from the government, and then back into like what they are.
Sure.
So grants are not like free money that the government is giving away
They're not?
because you pay taxes.
Everybody thinks it's free money.
It's not free money. I mean, if you have, 200 hours to spare to writing a really extensive grant program and process, then, you can kind of go be in the running.
So it's not like you just wait in line.
No,
and they just write you a
there's
check.
there's not unfortunately. So grants from federally funded grants are essentially funding from the government, from different sectors of the government. So National Science Foundation, National Institute of Health, the Department of Defense, DARPA, and these departments are looking for innovative solutions that companies, individuals, researchers have for the purpose of commercializing those. So if you are a scientist or researcher and you've been working in the lab or working, within different projects, and you have this idea that you think could be commercialized and that people could actually use, or if you're an entrepreneur, or if you want to become an entrepreneur and you have a very innovative idea that you think fits the mission statement of these organizations, then there are vehicles that you can go and apply to get grant funding. And it's basically working on a very specific project that you hope to commercialize. So you can't just kind of make something for fun and it's like, okay, that was a cool experience. Like the whole point is to actually commercialize it. So building a company, building an entity around it. Oftentimes when people are awarded grants, they already have a company, and at the time of award, you actually do have to have a full entity in place. So unfortunately, it is not money that the government just kind of gives out. But if you are an entrepreneur, you do have an idea and you want to commercialize it, it could be a good solution.
Well, what's really great, before we move on, I wanted to just kind of bring up why Courtney has applied for some grants and a little bit about her company, because both of us have some similar items in our personal lives, right? I have a handicapped sister and, grew up with seeing the needs of people with some disabilities and handicaps and just health issues. And Courtney, if you will tell us a little bit about your story and your company, that would be great.
Yeah. So I founded A Bill of Life in 2014, and I had no intent upon being an entrepreneur. But my mom had Parkinson's disease for 25 years. So for the majority of my life, I was a caregiver. So at the time, I was living in Pittsburgh, attending Carnegie Mellon University, and I was in the PhD program studying organizational behavior. So I thought that I was going to be a research professor, teaching MBA students, undergraduate students. So that was sort of my objective. My dissertation was on like community college student performance. And so I was just very much in that world. And my mom had tremendous difficulty with her posture. So she was constantly like hunched over to the point where sometimes her head was almost like in her lap. It was difficult for her to breathe. Reading a book was difficult, just sitting up straight. So I wanted to find a solution for her. I called the National Parkinson's Foundation, and they were like, we know what you're talking about, but we don't have any solutions on the market that we would recommend. So Carnegie Mellon, for those who don't know, is just renowned for its engineering capabilities, its programs. They're just bar none. So I thought, well, maybe I could like make something for her. I met up with the Project Olympus, which is the startup incubator at Carnegie Mellon. And I said, hey, I heard that you had some sort of engineers that are interested in working on different projects. They said, sure, we can help you. But as a prerequisite for getting their help, I had to write a 1-page business summary and plan of like what this might be. And I was, this isn't going to be a business, but whatever.
So the rough draft for the grant.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
And so I ended up writing this, and I realized that it wasn't just my mom that had this issue. There's 1.5 million Parkinson's patients in America, 10 million worldwide, that have this like posture instability issue. And then if you expand that market to osteoporosis, spinal stenosis, kyphosis, there's about 40 million in the U.S. that are impacted. So I realized then,
it's a fifth of the population.
Yeah, it's
Right.
really big.
Wow.
And it's growing because our baby boomers are aging, and people are living longer, and they want to live active lifestyles, and they want tools and techniques to be able to continue on. So I founded my company, finished my degree, and then launched full time into my company. And one of the things that I did, and I'm happy that I did this in the beginning, was I talked to about 100 patients, doctors, physicians, caregivers. And I said, what is like the one thing that you feel is missing in the market to help you manage your disease? And they said they had a hard time tracking their symptoms. And so that's when we got the idea of, we developed this back brace that was based out of my mom's need, that has a pulley tensioning system that lifts your shoulders up and back. But then we said, well, how can we build something that will help you manage your symptoms? So that's where we started writing the grant, because we're building a wearable technology that will have like machine learning algorithms and wearables embedded in the brace to track your motor symptoms. And so then we approached we approached the National Science Foundation, and they were excited. And I think that this is moving towards the trend of value-based healthcare, where it's no longer okay to just say, okay, I provided this drug or this therapeutic or this device, and this is the fee that my company requires. Now, insurance companies, Medicare, hospitals are requiring evidence that it is, in fact, helping the patient, and wanting to objectively see how it's helping the patient.
It's amazing, right? Taking a challenge and turning it into a complete positive. I think it's an amazing story.
Yeah, thank you.
So one of the things we talk about a lot on this podcast is how it is to be a female entrepreneur. And I know we talk about the sports supplements industry a lot, but what's it like in your space?
There are very few women, particularly women of color, in the medical device space. What I found, which is interesting, I didn't really expect this, is there's a lot of people who pass companies down in generation to generation. So they've sold anything from like wheelchairs, walkers, accessories, things like that. And so it's kind of like a mom and pop shop. And it's sort of founded and then kind of passed down. So it's odd because there is no sort of medical device degree that you can get, right? It's just something that you kind of happen into.
You fall into.
And if you think about like networks, for instance, and like the effective networks, it's like, well, I'm going to tell my friend Bob, about this business, and then he's going to tell his friend John, and then he's going to tell his friend Mark, and before you know it, it's just like this good old boy network. But it's really strange because the majority of caregivers are women. Mm-hmm. So if we had more women developing devices and running these companies, like how different things would look. I think it would be really interesting to see.
It would probably be interesting to see the quality of the devices, mm-hmm. and how well they improve people, or how quickly that they're made and put onto the market. I mean, here we are until 2014. How long has Parkinson's disease been around to have a back brace developed? Right. That's
and
crazy.
I was actually shocked when I started. I really was like, there's got to be something on the market. Like, this is ridiculous. And so we ended up actually about over a year ago getting a patent for the brace, and like all of our claims came back and they were novel. And so really, out of all the bracing patents, this was like new, and this application had been at the patent office for about 3 years. And yeah, so I mean, it truly had not existed up until this point. So it's just crazy to think about. And you think about markets being oversaturated, and many people were like, well, there's so many braces out there. Like, this is the same as, everyone else's. I'm like, no, it's very different. And clinicians were telling me, oh yeah, I've never seen anything like this. And so, yeah, I mean, there's so much room for innovation. So I would definitely recommend people who are thinking about, hey, I have this idea. Oh, it's probably already been designed. Well, do your research, because it might not have been.
Right. That's fantastic.
I mean, do you have any advice for a woman kind of entering the space?
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe that she has that idea. I mean, you happen to be at Carnegie Mellon, right? So finding those people was probably a little bit easier than it is for
A lot.
most.
Yeah, I don't think that I could have built my company the way that I had built it if I had not been at Carnegie Mellon. But I think that do your research, read as much as you can, ask as many questions as you can. I spent a year researching before building my company. I didn't incorporate into a year after because I wanted to make sure that, first of all, does it already exist? Because if it does, I'll just buy one for my mom and call it a day. And then, okay, fine, it doesn't exist. And sometimes things don't exist because they were already tried and it was realized that the market doesn't want it or need it.
So or the challenge was too
right,
great.
Exactly. So that was my next sort of question. Like, wait a minute, is it not built because it doesn't need to be built? So I spent a lot of time testing my hypotheses and trying to prove them wrong. But the time and time again, patients, clinicians were like, no, this is something that we would actually use. And so,
I mean, we talk about a lot of times, like why women don't excel as quickly or as often as we would love to see. It's because they don't want to ask questions or they're embarrassed to ask questions. And I mean, you should be the inspiration and motivation to people to say, you need to ask those questions. You need to believe in yourself and go out and find the answers and not kind of allow that to deter your thought process. So.
Yeah, and I think another thing too, as odd as it sounds, because it was a very personal issue, but I was able to use my research background and look at it as like an experiment. And I think if you wrap yourself up into your identity of this product, because at the end of the day, I knew regardless of what happened, my mom would still love me. And that was all, my dad still loved me. Like I still had friends, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so like stop wrapping your identity up. And it's an object and you have to look at it objectively. And I think when you do that, you get braver and you can ask questions because it's not like a personal attack on you.
No, absolutely. But I do think passion, passion, you have to have passion to make a product or a business succeed. You have to believe in what you're doing. And you're right, it's not personal, it's business. And but passion really does get you through those hurdles and those challenges and those long days and the tough days.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Speaking of long, tough days, I mean, how do you handle nutrition as a female entrepreneur? I mean, are there like go-to snacks? Are there, just these long hours and you just skip meals? I mean, how does it work?
Okay, so I have been talking. I just recently started doing acupuncture.
Okay.
And just to sort of like eliminate stress and just sort of, refocus in a different way. And so this year I'm committed to focusing on like sort of health. So last year I made a goal. I wanted to work out. I think it was like 250 times in the year. And I ended up achieving that. So I'm like, great. I know I can go to the gym. That's awesome.
Right. Because I think I know a little bit of something about your gym.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
Can we give a little plug?
Yeah, fill us in.
Freedom Fitness?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
it's amazing.
Right. So Freedom Fitness is a great gym because we're SDC Nutrition. And years ago, the C part of our name belonged to the founder of Freedom Fitness Gym. So Charles is a very good friend of mine, and he's also the owner of Freedom Fitness. Him and James and their design there. So
yeah, it's
just
amazing.
A little bit more that we're connected.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was the thing for me. It's just like making time to allow my body to move. Last year was a goal. So this year I'm focusing more on making sure that I get into a regular rhythm of food, understanding my relationship with food. I think that can be contentious a lot of the times. We have access to a lot of food that's not very healthy, or sometimes you'll skip meals altogether. So one of the things that I'm hopefully going to be embarking in the next few weeks is intermittent fasting, because I think that for me, there's multiple ways that theories that people have. It's like you need to be eating every 2 hours to keep your metabolism up. But I'm like, I have no time to like sit down and eat food,
Right.
So thinking about ways to maintain my energy. But that's definitely something that I'm working on. Taking vitamins, I think that's all really important.
So Devenee, what is intermittent fasting and like, do you believe in it?
I sort of do it, right? So it's part of my lifestyle. So
We're not really sure when you sleep. So
True. Very true. So 12 hours on, 12 hours off on your eating cycle.
Okay.
And so I kind of follow it. Every day is a little bit different. It just depends on how early I wake up and to when I start eating. So you give your body a break and it's able to recalibrate during that time off, and you're able to balance out your insulin usage and sugar levels and whatnot. So I'm not a huge sugar intake person to begin with. I have been a little bit more recent than most of my life.
It's because you have me in your life now.
That's
all the
true.
Sweet nothings.
Oh, that's the sweet nothings. That's it. So that's kind of the really short version of what that is. But I do believe in it. I do believe in a lot of things, right? First and foremost, calories consumed versus calories burned is always going to be the winner. It's just you can't consume more calories than what you burn. But there's a lot of things that are out there that can help people from time to time and help train them and get them to understand about food and nutrition, and to really get them to realize what their body needs and how it helps their body. But not everything is always a lifelong diet type. I would say it's always going to be calories in versus calories burned. So, but they have many teaching lessons in a lot of the programs out there.
Okay, so if there's one thing I learned from this podcast so far is that both of you women are crazy about goal setting, right? Like it's like everything when it comes to you guys. Like goal setting is bae, right?
Yeah, it is.
So I mean, what are the things that we can expect from STC Nutrition or About Time or from A Better Life in the upcoming year?
For us, it is expansion of our footprint. So we, I think within about like 18 months, had expanded from 4 different states in terms of, getting the brace prescribed and dispensed to over 40. And so now we're looking to get the rest of the United States and then go into Europe and Canada as well.
Oh, wow.
So we've been having a lot of emails and inquiries coming in. So that's really exciting. And then we want to get back on the project of the wearable because I think that's becoming more and more apparent that that's the way that the market's going. If you look at Apple and their EKG monitor process in their watch and how that just recently this past September got FDA cleared. I think that there's tremendous opportunity for wearable devices in the clinical space. So we've been speaking with the FDA just about our ideas and ways to get guidance on and how to build this wearable so that it meets guidelines and that it's ultimately beneficial to patients and clinicians. So that's
super exciting.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So for SDC, so you will see some new products come out this year under the About Time line. We're working on a few new functional food items, which is always exciting because being able to help people eat healthy in a very simple, easy manner is always, a big bonus for me. And you will see a few things from me personally, some new articles that are coming out. I've been asked to speak at a few events, so that will be coming up later this year. So probably see, at least me out there a little bit more helping other females and helping them to understand their role of growing within their companies and whatnot. And, other than that, that's kind of where we are for 2019.
This is going to be an exciting year, for
sure.
It
Absolutely is.
So, Courtney, how do people find you on social media or how do they connect with you if they have any questions?
So you can go to our website, www.abellalife.com. We're on Facebook as well, so they can reach out to us there.
Awesome.
Perfect.
All right, well, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming, Courtney.
Thanks for having me.